Today we'll be discussing CMI's 2020 undergraduate paper, and this paper again has some beautiful questions. This video, it is sponsored by CMI Tomato website, which is a great resource for CMI as well as ISI entrance examination. Simply go to the Google page, search CMI Tomato and click on the first link, cmientranceexam.in. Now, as you can see, this website has past year solutions and also it has questions segregated according to various sections and subsections. So you can explore the website. I'll put the link to the website in the description below. Now we'll start with 2020 solutions. And the first question is, each student in a small school has to be a member of at least one of the three school clubs. It is known that each club has 35 members. It is not known how many students are members of two of the three clubs, but it is known that exactly 10 students are members of all three clubs. Now we need to find what is the largest possible total number of students and also what is the smallest possible total number of students. So in this school we have three clubs and say there are C1, C2 and C3. Now in the question it says each club has 35 members and there are exactly 10 students who are member of all three clubs. So that means this value, it is 10. Now suppose there are A students which are in C1 alone, then correspondingly we have B and C for C2 and C3, and then suppose we have X number of students which are in both C1 and C2, Y which are in both C2 and C3, and Z which are in both C1 and C3. Now it is given that each club has 35 members. That means for this club C1 we can write A plus X plus Z plus 10, and this value is equal to 35. So we can simply write this as A plus X plus Z and will be equal to 25. Now in the same way we can write B plus X plus Y will be 25 and C plus Y and will also be 25. Now we'll add them. We can write A plus B plus C plus 2 X plus Y plus Z, and this value is equal to 75. Now we need to find total number of students in the school. Now we know that total number of students is given by A plus B plus C plus X plus Y plus Z plus 10. Now we need to find largest and smallest possible value of this expression. Now we can write A plus B plus C plus X plus Y plus Z as 75 minus X plus Y plus Z, and then we'll add 10 also. So now it becomes N. So we can write this N as 85 minus X plus Y plus Z. Now we need to find what is the maximum value of N. So this value N will be maximum when this sum X plus Y plus Z is minimum. Now what is the minimum possible value for X, Y and Z? So minimum possible value for each of X, Y and Z is 0. So we'll take X, Y, Z as 0. We'll get N max, and that is maximum number of students, and it will be simply 85. Now we'll also need to find what is the smallest possible number of students. Now for smallest number of students, we'll need to find the maximum value of X plus Y plus Z. Now it is given that A plus B plus C plus 2X plus Y plus Z is equal to 75. This sum X plus Y plus Z will be maximum when A plus B plus C is 0. If A plus B plus C is 0, then we'll get maximum possible value of X plus Y plus Z, and that will be 75 by 2, and which is 37.5. So this N minimum, it will be 85 minus 37.5, which is 47.5. But this N, it cannot be a fraction number. So the smallest possible value of this N will be simply 48. So largest possible number is 85 and smallest possible number is 48, and that is the answer to this question. Now question number A2 is, let P be the plane containing the vectors 6i plus 6j plus 9k and 7i plus 8j plus 10k. Now we need to find a unit vector that is perpendicular to vector 2, -3, 4, and that lies in the plane of P. Now from fundamental theorem in the plane, we know that any vector in the plane of A and B can be expressed as linear combination of A and B. So we can write this vector as some vector R, and it'll be x 6i plus 6j plus 9k plus y, and then 7i plus 8j plus 10k. Now in the question it says this vector, it has to be a unit vector and should be perpendicular to this given vector, say vector c. So that means r dot c must be 0. So if r dot c is 0, we'll get this as x and then I with I. So it'll be 12 minus 18 plus 36 plus y, 14 minus 24 plus 40, and this value, it should be 0. So we can write this as 38 minus 18. So it'll be 20x and then plus, now here this value will be 20y. So from here we'll get this condition as value of x plus y is 0. Now we can replace x with minus y. So we can write this r as minus y 6i plus 6j plus 9k plus y 7i plus 8j plus 10k. Now we'll take this y common. So we can write this r as y into I plus 2j plus k. Now additionally it is given that this r is a unit vector, and if r is a unit vector, then its magnitude, which is mod of y into under root 6, and it'll be 1. So that means value of y is plus or minus 1 by root 6. So now we can write this vector as plus or minus 1 by root 6, and it'll be I plus 2j plus k, or alternatively we can write this as plus minus 1 by root 6, 2 by root 6 and 1 by root 6, and that is the answer to this question. Now this third question is we need to find these two definite integrals, and it also says that it may be useful to first sketch the graph. Now we'll consider this first integral, say I1. Now I1 is this integral from 1 to e square and log mod x into dx. Now since x is positive, mod x is simply x. So we can write this as from 1 to e square log x dx. Now we'll use by parts, taking log x as first function and 1 as second function. We'll get this as x log x minus x, and from 1 to e square. So we'll get this as e square ln e square minus 0 and then minus e square minus 1. So it'll be 2e square minus e square plus 1. So this value will be e square plus 1. So value of this first integral is e square plus 1. For the second integral, say I2, we can write this integral as integral from minus 1 to 1 log mod x upon mod x dx. Now this function, it is not defined at 0 and it is an even function. So we can write this as 2 times and then from 0 to 1 log mod x upon mod x dx. Now when x lies between 0 and 1, mod x is simply x. So it will be 2 times from 0 to 1 log x by x into dx. Now it says it may be useful to first sketch the graph. So what we'll do is we'll try and draw the graph of fx equals ln x upon x when x lies between 0 and 1. Now we know that in between 0 and 1, this function will be continuous and differentiable. Now we'll find f0 positive, which will be this limit x tends to 0 positive ln x upon x. Now ln 0 positive is minus infinite and minus infinite upon 0 is minus infinite. So at 0 positive, this function takes the value minus infinite, and at 1, this value will be log 1 upon 1 and this value will be 0. Now we'll differentiate this function. If we'll find f dash x, we can write x derivative of log x is 1 by x minus log x upon x square. So the critical point here is E. Now in between 0 and 1, this value is greater than 0. So that means this function fx will be an increasing function. So we'll draw this graph between 0 and 1. It'll start from minus infinite and it'll go all the way up to 0. Now this definite integral I2, it is nothing but it is 2 times this value with a negative sign. Now this is unbounded, and when this is unbounded, this value, it approaches minus infinite. So this second integral is not bounded and its value, it approaches minus infinite, and that is the answer to this question. Now the fourth question is, a fair die is thrown 100 times in succession. Find the probability of the following events. And the first one is 4 is the outcome of one or more of the first 3 throws. Now we are talking about just first 3 throws. Now in the first 3 throws, this 4, it must come at least once. So in order to calculate this probability, what we'll do is we'll take 1 and then subtract its complement from it. And its complement is that 4 doesn't come in any one of these first 3 throws. So it'll be 1 minus. Now it's not 4 on the first. So it'll be 5 by 6. And then it's not 4 on the second. And it's not 4 on the third. So it'll be 1 minus 5 by 6 cubed. And that is, and this value, it is equal to 91 upon 216. Now we'll come to the second problem, and it says exactly 2 of the last 4 throws give an outcome divisible by 3. Now we know that a number is divisible by 3 if it is either 3 or 6. So its probability will be 2 by 6, and probability of not getting a multiple of 3 will be 4 by 6. So this one is 1 by 3 and this is 2 by 3. So from the last 4 throws, so in this case value of n is 4, we need to get exactly 2 numbers which are divisible by 3. So it's a question of binomial probability. So we just need probability of x equals 2. So it'll be simply 4c2 p to the power 2 into q to the power 2. So this is 4c2 and p is 1 by 3. So it'll be 1 by 3 square and then 2 by 3 square. Now 4c2 is 6 and this is 1 by 9 and 4 by 9. So it will be 8 upon 27. So the second probability is 8 by 27, and this is how we solve such questions. Now question A5 is, we need to answer each question below as series of 3 letters y or n, leaving the space between the group of 3 letters. So we are given 3 functions f, g and h, and the first question is, does f have a horizontal asymptote, a vertical asymptote, or a removable discontinuity? Now if we look at this function fx, it is x cube upon x square minus x. Now we'll take x common, we can write x cube, and here will be x into x minus 1. Now this function, it is not defined at x equals 0 and x equals 1. Now we'll take this limit x tends to 0 fx. So this limit x tends to 0 fx will be, now here x and x will cancel, so it will be 0 upon minus 1. So this value, it is 0. And then this limit x tends to 1 fx. So this value, it approaches infinite. So that means this function, it will have a removable discontinuity at 0, because at 0, this function is discontinuous, but limit exists and it is equal to 0. And it also has a vertical asymptote at x equals 1. Now what about horizontal asymptote? For that, we'll find this limit x tends to plus or minus infinite x cube upon x square minus x. Now degree of numerator is greater than degree of denominator. So that means this value, it approaches plus or minus infinite. So this function, it doesn't have a horizontal asymptote. So answer to this question will be, first one is no, second one is yes, and third one is yes. So it will be n, y, y. And we'll come to the second part, which is this function g. Now we look at this function gx. Gx is defined as x square minus x upon x cube. Now again, this function is not defined at x equals to 0. So it is discontinuous at x equals to 0. Now we'll cancel this x. We can write x minus 1 upon x square. Now we'll take this limit x tends to 0, x minus 1 upon x square. So this value, it approaches minus infinite. So that means this function, it has a vertical asymptote at x equal to 0 and it doesn't have a removable discontinuity. Now what about horizontal asymptote? So we'll take this limit x tends to infinite, x square minus x upon x cube. Now here power in the denominator is greater than power in the numerator. So this limit, it approaches 0. So this function g, it has a horizontal asymptote, it has a vertical asymptote, but it doesn't have a removable discontinuity. So answer for the second part will be yes, yes and no. Now we'll come to this third function, which is hx. Now hx is defined as x cube minus x upon x cube plus x. So again, x here is unequal to 0. Now if we'll cancel x, we'll get x square minus 1 upon x square plus 1. Now we'll take this limit x tends to 0, hx, this limiting value, this value is equal to minus 1. So the only point of discontinuity is 0, at which it has a removable discontinuity, so it doesn't have a vertical asymptote. And for horizontal asymptote, we'll find this limit x tends to infinite hx. Now here, degree of numerator is same as degree of denominator. So answer to this limit will be coefficient of x cube in the numerator upon coefficient of x cube in the denominator, which is 1. So this limit, it approaches a finite value. So that means it has a horizontal asymptote. So for this third one, answer will be yes, no and yes. Question A6 is, recall the function arc 10x, also described as tan inverse of x. Then we need to complete this sentence, which is tan inverse of 2020-2019 plus tan inverse of 2020-2021, and this is 2 tan inverse of 2020-2020. Now we need to know whether it is less than or greater than or equal to this expression. Now if we look at the graph of tan inverse x, graph of tan inverse x is concave down when x is greater than 0. Also, we can differentiate this function and we can write dy by dx as 1 upon 1 plus x square, and its second derivative d square y upon dx square will be minus 1 upon 1 plus x square whole square into 2x, which again is less than 0 whenever x is greater than 0. So if x is a positive number, this function is concave down. Now in this question we are given three numbers 20202019, which is less than 20202020, and it is less than 20202021. Now we consider these three numbers, say x, y and z. Then suppose this is x, this is y and this is z. Now we'll take midpoint of fx and fz. We can write it as fx plus fz by 2, and this point will lie on this line, and this line, it will lie below this graph. So this value, it will be less than value of this function at y, which is fy. So we can write fx plus fz upon 2 is less than fy, which gives us the result tan inverse x, which in this case is 2020-2019 plus tan inverse z is less than 2 tan inverse y, because in the relevant region, the graph of y equals tan inverse x has negative second derivative because it is concave down. So for this question, the first one will be is less than, and the second one will be has negative second derivative. Now question A7 is, this polynomial px is divisible by x square minus 1, then find the value of a and b. Now if it is divisible by x square minus 1, then p1 is 0 and p minus 1 is 0. Now we'll put x as 1, we'll get 10 plus a plus b plus 3 plus 15 equals 0. So it will be a plus b plus 28 equals 0. And if we'll put x as minus 1, we'll get 10 minus a plus b minus 3 plus 15, and it will be 0. So we'll get minus a plus b, and here it will be 22, and this value, it should be 0. Now we'll add them. If we'll add them, we'll get 2b plus 50 equals 0. So value of b is minus 25. Now we'll put b as minus 25. Value of a will be simply minus 3. So for this first part, value of a is minus 3 and value of b is minus 25. Now the second part is if you can find the sum of reciprocals of all 400 complex roots of px. So in this case, we need to find this summation, which is 1 upon summation alpha I. Now we know that 1 upon summation alpha I is nothing but Sn minus 1 upon Sn. Now what is Sn minus 1? Sn minus 1 in this case is S399 and Sn is S400. Now what is S399? S399 will be minus and then coefficient of this term x upon 10. And what is S400? S400 will be plus 15 upon 10. Now this 10 and 10 will cancel. So this value will be equal to minus 1 by 5. Now question number 8 is find a positive integer number n which is less than 60 such that number of divisors is 6. Now we know that for any number n, if we express it as prime powers, suppose p to the power a, q to the power b, r to the power c, then number of divisors is given by a plus 1, b plus 1, c plus 1 and so on. Now in this case, we'll need number of divisors to be 6. Now number of divisors will be 6 if in the first case n is of the form p to the power 1 and q to the power 2, because in that case value of dn will be 2 into 3 and it will be 6, or when this n is of the form p to the power 5, so in that case dn will simply be 5 plus 1 and that is 6. Now we need to find out how many such numbers are possible from 1 to 60. Now we'll start with q square. This q square can be 2 square and then we must have a prime number which is not 2. So here we can have 3, 5, 7, 11, 13 and then 17 into 4 is 68, which is basically greater than 60. So this is all we have here. Now it could be 3 square. So if we have 3 square, then it can be 2, 5. Now we'll take 7. 7 into 9 is 63, which is greater than 60. So it will be 3 square into either 2 or 5. Now we'll take 5 square. Then 5 square will be simply 2. All other values will be greater than that. And then if we'll take 7 square, it is 49. 49 into 2 is greater than 60. So these are all the possibilities for this first form. Now for the second form, the only possible value is 2 to the power 5. So how many such numbers are possible? So we have 5 plus 2, 7, 8, 8 plus 1, 9. So we have 9 such numbers. So number of such numbers is simply 9 and that is the answer to this question. Now question number A9 is given that a quadratic polynomial 1 plus x plus 1 by 2 x into x minus 1 satisfies pj equals 2 to the power j for j equals 0, 1 and 2. A polynomial qx of degree 7 satisfies qj equals 2 to the power 7 for j equals 0, 1, 2 up to 7. We need to find the value of q10. Now we look at this px, then this px can be expressed as xc0 plus xc1 plus xc2 and will be simply 2 to the power x. Now for this polynomial qx, we know that nc0 plus nc1 plus ncn is 2 to the power n. So we can write this polynomial qx as xc0 plus xc1 plus xc2 and plus xc7. Now it says find the value of q10. The value of q10 will be 10c0 plus 10c1 plus 10c2 up to 10c7, and this value will be equal to 2 to the power n, which is 2 to the power 10 minus remaining 3 values, which are 10c8 plus 10c9 plus 10c10. Now 2 to the power 10 is 1024. Now 10c8 is 45, 10c9 is 10 and then plus 1, which is 968. Now question number 8 is, we are given that 25 into 16 minus 19 into 21 is 1. Using this or otherwise, we need to find positive integers a, b and c all less than or equal to 475, which is 25 into 19, such that a is 1 modulo 19 and 0 modulo 25. So we can write a as 1 plus 19k, or we can write this a as 0 plus 25k dash. Now 1 plus 19k is equal to 25k dash. We can write 25k dash minus 19k equals 1. Now it is already given that 25 into 16 minus 19 into 21 is equal to 1. So that means we can take this k dash as 16 and this k as 21. Now using either k or k dash, we'll get the value of a. So value of a here will be 25 into 16, which is nothing but 400. So value of a is 400. Now we'll come to the second part. For b, it says b is 0 modulo 19. So we can write this b as 19k, and we can also write this b as 1 plus 25k dash. Now we'll equate them. We can write minus 25k dash plus 19k, and this is equal to 1. Now we'll again compare it. We can write k dash as minus 16 and k as minus 21. Now we'll put k as minus 21. We can write this b as 19 into minus 21, which is minus 399. But b cannot be a negative number. It says we need to find positive integers. So this b, it has to be of the form. Now this is 25 into 19. It is 475. So it'll be 475 minus 399, which is 76. So value of b has to be 76. And finally for c, it is given that c is 4 modulo 19. So c will be 4 plus 19k, and it will be equal to 10 plus 25k dash. So we can write minus 25k dash plus 19k, and this value will be equal to 6. Now what we'll do is, in this equation we'll multiply it by 6. So we can write 25 into 16 into 6 minus 19 into 21 into 6, and this value, it is equal to 6. Now we'll compare. We can write k dash as minus 16 into 6, and we can write k as minus 21 into 6. Now we'll take k as minus 21 into 6. We can write c as 4 plus 19 into minus 21 into 6, which is minus 2390, which again is a negative number. So we can write this c as 475 into 6 minus 2390, which is 460. So value of c is 460. Now question number B1 is, suppose ABCD are points on a circle such that AC and BD are diameters on that circle. Suppose AB is 12, BC is 5, and P is a point on arc of circle from A to B, which doesn't contain C and D. Let the distance of P from ABCD be small abcd. We need to find the value of A plus B upon C plus D and A minus B upon D minus C. So we have this circle, and then we have two diameters, AC and BD. So this is AC, and then we also have BD. Now this ABCD, it is a rectangle because we know that angle in a semicircle is 90 degrees. So it is a rectangle, and it is given that AB is 12. So this value, it is 12. CD is also 12, and then BC is 5, and this AD is also 5. Now it says there is a point P in between AB. So we have this point P, and then we'll join P with ABCD. We'll need to find the value of A plus B upon C plus D. Now we'll consider this quadrilateral PADB. If we use Ptolemy's theorem, then product of diagonals, which is AB into PD, will be equal to sum of product of opposite sides. So it will be AP into BD plus BP into AD. Now what is AB? AB is 12. PD is D, AP is A, BD is diameter of the circle. So this is 12, this is 5. So BD will be simply 13. So it will be A into 13 plus BP is small b into AD, and AD is 5. So we get this first equation, which is 12D, and it will be equal to 13A plus 5B. Now we consider this other quadrilateral PACB. Then again, if we use Ptolemy's theorem, we can again write PC into AB as PB into AC plus PA into BC. Now PC is C, AB is 12, PB is B, and AC is 13, PA is A, and BC is 5. So the other equation we'll get is 12C, and it'll be equal to 13B plus 5A. Now we'll add them, we'll get 12C plus D, and it'll be equal to 18A plus B. Now we'll divide it, we'll write A plus B upon C plus D equals 12 by 18, which is 2 by 3. So value of this first expression is 2 by 3. Now what about A minus B upon D minus C? Now we'll subtract these two, we'll get 12 D minus C, and here it will be 13A minus 5A. So which is simply 8A minus B. Now in this case, A minus B upon D minus C, it will be 12 by 8, which is 3 by 2. So for the second one, answer will be 3 by 2. B2 is, we are given this complex number Z, which is e to the power 2 pi iota upon n. Now first part is, we need to show that this summation k varies from 0 to n minus 1, z to the power k is 0. Now k varies from 0 to n minus 1 is nothing but 1 plus z square up to z to the power of n minus 1. Now it is nothing but a GP, and we know that sum of GP is a into r to the power n minus 1 upon r minus 1. Now here, what is the value of z to the power n? Z to the power n in this case is e to the power 2 iota pi minus 1 upon z minus 1. Now what is e to the power 2 pi iota? It will be cos 2 pi plus iota sine 2 pi, and cos 2 pi is 1 and sine 2 pi is 0. So it will be 1 minus 1 upon z minus 1, which is 0. So we have proved that this summation will be simply 0. Second part is, we need to show that this summation k varies from 0 to 8 cos 40k plus 1 is 0. So what we'll do is, we'll consider this series, which is k varies from 0 to 8 e to the power iota 40k plus 1. We can write this as e to the power iota and then summation k varies from 0 to 8 e to the power iota 40k. Now what we'll also do is, we'll multiply and divide by 9. So we'll multiply and divide it by 9. We can write e to the power iota and then this summation k varies from 0 to 8 e to the power iota. Now 40 into 9 is 360, which is 2 pi, and will be 2 pi by 9. So here we have 2 pi by n, and here it is a summation from 0 to n minus 1, and we have already proved that this summation is equal to 0. For this series, real part is 0 as well as its imaginary part is 0. So we can simply say that its real part, which is summation k varies from 0 to 8 cos 40k plus 1, will be simply 0, and that's how we solve such questions. Now in question B3 it says, a spider starts at origin and runs in the first quadrant along the graph y equals x cube. So we have this graph, which is y equals x cube. Now it says at a constant speed of 10 unit per second. So actually what we're given is dl by dt, where L is length of the curve. So dl by dt is 10 unit per second. Now the formula for curve length along the graph is given as L from A to B under root 1 plus f dash x into dx. As the spider runs, it spins out a thread that is always maintained in a straight line connecting the spider with the origin. What is the rate in unit second at which the thread is elongating when the spider is at 1 by 2, 1 by 8. Now it says we should use these variables u and u cube. So at any point, say which is p, and this is u and u cube. U in this case is 1 by 2. We need to find rate of elongation of this thread, which is suppose s. So we need to find ds upon dt. Now s is distance of this point from origin. So we can write s square as u square plus u to the power 6. Now we'll differentiate. We can write 2s ds upon dt will be equal to 2u plus 6u to the power 5 into du upon dt. Now we know that value of u is 1 by 2. If the value of u is 1 by 2, then s square will be 1 by 4 plus 1 by 64. So it will be 64, and then 16 plus 1 is 17. So value of s is under root 17 by 8. So we can write 2 under root 17 by 8 into ds by dt, and it will be equal to 2u. So it will be 2 into 1 by 2, which is 1, plus 6, and u to the power 5 is 1 by 32 into du by dt. Now this value, this is 3 and this is 16. So we can write this as under root 17 upon 4 ds by dt, and it will be equal to 19 by 16 du upon dt. Now we'll take everything on the right hand side. We can write ds upon dt as 19 upon 4 under root 17 du by dt. Now we need to find out du by dt. Now we know that length of this curve L is given by this integral from 0 to u, and it will be under root of 1 plus f dash x whole square into dx. Now we'll differentiate it with respect to t. We can write dl upon dt as under root of 1 plus f dash u square into du by dt. Now it is given the question that dl upon dt is 10, and this is under root of 1 plus. Now what is f dash u? Fu is u cube, f dash u is 3u square. So it will be 9u to the power 4, and value of u is 1 by 2. So it will be 9 into 1 by 2 to the power 4 du upon dt. Now this is 25 upon 16. It will be simply 5 by 4. So we can write 10 equals 5 by 4 into du by dt. Now here this 5 will cancel. So we can write du upon dt as simply 8. Now we'll put the value of du upon dt here. So we'll get ds upon dt as 19 upon 4 root 17 into 8. So it'll be 2, and which is 38 upon root 17. So length of elongation of this web will be 38 upon root 17 unit per second. Now question B4 is, throughout this problem we are interested in real valued function f satisfying two conditions, that at each x in its domain f is continuous and fx square is equal to fx whole square. Now we need to prove the following independent statements about such function, and they have given some hints also. Now the first one is, there is unique such function f with domain in 0 to 1 such that f0 is unequal to 0. And this question we are given that fx square is equal to fx whole square. Now we'll put x as 0, we'll get f0 as f0 square. So from here we'll get either the value of f0 is 0 or the value of f0 is 1. But in the question it says f0 is unequal to 0. So that means this condition is not possible. So value of f0 is 1. Now what we'll do is we'll consider this function f a to the power 2 to the power n. Now we can write this as f a 2 to the power n minus 1 square, and we can write this as f a to the power 2 to the power n minus 1 whole square. And if we'll keep doing it, from here we can say f a 2 to the power n will be equal to f a to the power 2 to the power n. Now we consider sequence of numbers which are of the form a 2 to the power n. Now as n tends to infinite, so this is a to the power infinite, and since a lies between 0 and 1, this value it approaches 0. So if we take limiting value of this function, then it'll be simply f0, and we know that value of f0 is 1. So we can write f0 as fa 2 to the power n. Now from here we can clearly say that value of fa, it must be 1. So for any number a lying between 0 and 1, value of fa will always be 1, which clearly indicates that this given function fx, it is a constant function and its value will be 1. So this function is uniquely determined if the function is continuous and if f0 is unequal to 0, given the condition fx square is fx whole square. Now the second part is the domain of such f is from 0 to infinite, then fx is 0 for every x, or fx is unequal to 0 for every x. Now what we'll do is we'll prove this condition using contradiction. So what we'll say is, let there be two numbers a and b such that fa is 0 and fb is unequal to 0. Now we are given this condition, which is fx square equals fx whole square. Now we'll take x as under root a, we can write fa as f under root a square. In other words, we can write f under root a as under root of fa. Now we repeat the process n times, then we can simply write f a to the power 2 to the power minus n, and it'll be f a to the power 2 to the power minus n, and same will be true for b also. So we can also write f b to the power 2 to the power minus n, and it'll be equal to fb 2 to the power minus n. Now again we'll take limiting value of this function. So we'll take limit n tends to infinite. Now this is 2 to the power minus infinite, and 2 to the power minus infinite is 0 and a to the power 0 is 1. So from here we can write, as n approaches infinite, f1 it approaches fa to the power 2 to the power n. Now fa is 0, so this value will be simply 0. And what about the second one? From the second one again it will be b to the power 0. So from here we'll get f1, and f1 will be fb to the power 2 to the power minus n. Now fb it is unequal to 0, and then 2 to the power minus n will be simply 0. Finite to the power 0 is simply 1. So we are getting two limiting values for f1, which is not possible. So we get a contradiction. So from contradiction we can say that it is not possible to have two numbers such that at one of them value is 0 and for the other one value is unequal to 0. So either it will be always 0 or it will always be non-zero. Now we'll come to its third part, which says there are infinitely many functions f with domain from 0 to infinite such that this integral from 0 to infinite fx dx is less than 1. Now in the hint it says this function fx equals x to the power r, it satisfies this condition fx square equals fx whole square. So we'll take this function as x to the power r. We can write this as this integral from 0 to 1 x to the power r dx plus this integral from 1 to infinite x to the power s into dx, and this value it should be less than 1. Now we'll integrate them, we'll get this result as x to the power r plus 1 upon r plus 1 from 0 to 1, and then plus x to the power s plus 1 upon s plus 1 from 1 to infinite. Now we'll put x as 1, it'll be simply 1 upon r plus 1, and we'll put 0 here. This value it should be bounded, and it'll be bounded when r plus 1 is greater than 0, that is value of r is greater than minus 1. So it'll be simply 1 upon r plus 1 minus 0, and then plus. Now we'll put x as infinite, infinity to the power s plus 1, it'll be finite and bounded only when s plus 1 it is less than 0. So that means value of s should be less than minus 1. So in that case we'll get this as 0 minus 1 upon s plus 1. So this value it should be less than 1. From here we'll get this result 1 upon r plus 1 minus 1 upon s plus 1, and it should be less than 1. Now this inequality will have infinite such solutions. So there'll be infinitely many f's in the domain for which this integral is less than 1. Now question number B5 is, consider a polynomial with following property. If r is a root of px, then r square minus 4 is also a root of px. Now the first question is, we want to find every quadratic polynomial of the form px equals x square plus bx plus c such that px has two distinct roots and has this given property, and we need to prove that there are exactly two such polynomials. Now this equation x square plus bx plus c will have two roots, say r and s, where r is unequal to s. Now in the question it says, if r is a root, then r square minus 4 is also a root of px. Now this quadratic equation, it cannot have more than two roots. So that means this r square minus 4 either will be equal to r, or r square minus 4, it must be equal to s. Now if r square minus 4 is equal to r, we'll get our first equation, and there'll be x square minus x minus 4 equals 0. So one such quadratic equation will be x square minus x minus 4 equals 0. Now if r square minus 4 is equal to s, then this is unequal to r. But if s is the root of this equation, then s square minus 4, it must also be the root of this equation. If s square minus 4 is equal to s, we'll end up getting the same equation. So another possibility that we'll have is this s square minus 4, it must be equal to r. Now we'll put s as r square minus 4. The other equation we'll get is r square minus 4 whole square minus 4, and it must be equal to r. So from here we'll get this condition as r to the power 4 plus 16 minus 8r square minus r minus 4 equals 0, which is a biquadratic equation in r. Now one of the solution of this biquadratic must be r square minus r minus 4. So what we'll do is, using long division, we'll divide this polynomial in r to the power 4 minus 8r square minus r plus 12 with r square minus r minus 4. So we'll get r square, it'll be r to the power 4 minus r cube minus 4r square. So this is minus plus plus. So it'll be r cube minus 4r square minus r plus 12 plus r cube minus r square minus 4r. So it'll be minus 3r square plus 3r plus 12, and then we'll have minus 3. So it'll be minus 3r square plus 3r plus 12. So we can factorize this biquadratic as r square minus r minus 4 into r square plus r minus 3 equals to 0. So now we have our other quadratic expression as well, and it'll be x square plus x minus 3 equals 0. So there'll be two such quadratic polynomials possible. The first one will be x square minus x minus 4, and the second one will be x square plus x minus 3. So this is how we can find answer to this first part. Now in the second part it says, it is also true that there are exactly two cubic polynomials of the form px equals x cube plus ax square plus bx plus c with a given property such that px shares no root with the polynomial you found in part 1. Now we need to explain how you will prove this along with the method to find the polynomial, but we need not explicitly find those polynomials. Now we have this cubic equation px, which is x cube plus ax square plus bx plus c. Now here we have three distinct roots, say r, s and t. Now if r, s and t, they are roots of this equation, then r square minus 4, s square minus 4 and t square minus 4, they are also root of this equation. Now this r square minus 4, it cannot be equal to r and it cannot be equal to s, because if it is equal to r or s, then we'll get the solution from the first part. Here we need a different solution. So from here we can say this t, it must be equal to r square minus 4. T is r square minus 4, then t square minus 4, it must be equivalent to one of the roots. So t square minus 4 will be r square minus 4 whole square and minus 4. Now this value, it cannot be equal to r, because if it is equal to r, then it'll again take the value from the first form. So now here this value, it must be equal to s. Now if this is equal to s, then s square minus 4 is again the root of this equation. So we can write r square minus 4 whole square minus 4 whole square minus 4. Now this value, it must be equal to r. Now we can factorize this polynomial to get two cubic polynomials of the desired form. Now in the question it says we need not explicitly find these polynomials. We just have to express the way with which we can find these polynomials. So we are done here. But then if you have to find these cubic polynomials, then one of the way of doing it is consider this polynomial x square minus 4 whole square minus 4 whole square minus 4 minus x equals 0. So take this polynomial, put it as an input in Wolfram Alpha, and then you'll get this result as x cube minus x square minus 6x plus 7 into x cube plus 2x square minus 3x minus 5. So we'll get two distinct cubic polynomials. And this is how we solve such questions. Now question number B6 is, for sets S and T, a relation from S to T is just a subset R of S cross T. Now part 1 is, a relation R from S to S is called anti-symmetric if it satisfies the following condition. If AB is in R, then BA must not be in R. Now for S equals 1, 2, 3 up to K, how many anti-symmetric relations are there from S to S? Now here in the question they have defined anti-symmetric in a different way. In general we say that a relation is anti-symmetric if A comma B belongs to R, then B comma A doesn't belong to R except when A equals B. So we'll solve this question for traditional anti-symmetric relations and also for this given anti-symmetric relation in CMI's paper. Now we'll consider all Cartesian products S cross S. Then we'll write these products as 1, 1, 1, 2, 1K, 2, 1, 2, 2, and 2K, and then K1, K2, and KK. Now in traditional form, in anti-symmetric relation, we can choose these diagonal elements. For each diagonal elements, we'll have two choices. So it'll be two choices for 1, 1, two choices for 2, 2, and two choices for K, K. So total choices will be simply 2 to the power K. Now for the remaining numbers, what we'll do is we'll find how many pairs of AB and BA exist in this given format. So total number of elements is simply K square, and we'll remove all the diagonal elements. It'll be K square minus K. And then in each pair we have two elements. So number of such pairs will be K square minus K upon 2. Now if the relation is anti-symmetric, then there are three possibilities. Either 2, 1 is present and 1, 2 is not present, or 1, 2 is present and 2, 1 is not present, or both of them they are not present. So that means both of them, they cannot occur together. So for this first pair, how many choices do we have? For this first pair, we have 3 choices. For the second pair also, we have 3 choices. And then for all the remaining pairs, we have 3 choices each. So total number of anti-symmetric relations defined in traditional sense will be 2 to the power K into 3 to the power K square minus K upon. Now in CMI's way, what they say is a relation is defined anti-symmetric if AB is in R, then BA must not be in R. So in this case, they have not allowed this condition. So we cannot have 1, 1, 2, 2 and KK. So that means for all of them, we have only one choice. So it'll be simply 1. And then for each pair, again, we'll have 3 choices. So it'll be 3 to the power K square minus K upon 2. So answer to this question will be 3 K square minus K upon 2, or we can also write this as 3 to the power KC2. Now part 2 is write a recurring equation for Fkn, the number of non-crossing relations that have no isolated elements in either set. And they have given the definition of isolated elements as well as non-crossing elements. Now here we need to write this recurrence equation for Fkn. So we have this set containing k elements 1, 2, 3 up to k, and then we have this set containing n elements. Now we need to find number of non-crossing relations having no isolated elements from set k to n. So we need to find Fkn. Now we know that for this relation to be non-crossing with no isolated elements, this k, it must be mapped to n. Now what about k minus 1 and n minus 1? For this relation to be non-crossing, 3 possibilities exist. First possibility is when this k is mapped to n minus 1. Then we have our first case, and there will be f k comma n minus 1. Now suppose this k, it is not mapped to n minus 1, but this k minus 1, it is mapped to n. Now if this k minus 1 is mapped to n, then this is nothing but this is f k minus 1 comma n. And now finally, this last case, when k is mapped to n and this k minus 1, it is mapped to n minus 1. When k minus 1 is mapped to n minus 1, we can write this as f k minus 1 n minus 1. So we can write fkn as fkn minus 1 plus fk minus 1 n plus fk minus 1 n minus 1, and this is the recurring relation we need to find. Here we can also say that fk1, so here we have only one element, so this element, it must be mapped to all other elements. So fk1 will be 1, and also f1n will also be 1. Now this third part is using your recurrence in second, or otherwise find a formula for f3n. Now before f3n, what we'll do is we'll first find f2n. We can write f2n as f2n minus 1 plus f1n plus f1n minus 1. Now we can rewrite this as f2n minus f2n minus 1, and this is 1 and this also is 1, so this value will be equal to 2. So that means this sequence, it is nothing but an arithmetic progression with common difference 2. So this f2n will be simply a plus n minus 1 into d, which is 2n minus 1. So f2n is 2n minus 1. Now using f2n, we'll find the value of f3n. Now we'll put k as 3. We can write f3n as f3n minus 1 plus f2n f2n minus 1. Now we can write this as f3n minus f3n minus 1. Now what is f2n? f2n is 2n minus 1, and f2n minus 1 is 2n minus 3, which is 4n minus 1. Now we'll put n as 2, we'll write f32 minus f31 will be 4 into 1. If we'll put n as 3, we'll get f33 minus f32 will be 4 into 2, and finally we can write f3n minus f3n minus 1, and it will be equal to 4n minus 1. Now we'll add them all up. When we'll add them, all these successive terms, they'll cancel. We can simply write f3n minus f31, and it will be equal to 4, 1 plus 2 plus 3 up to n minus 1. Now f31 is 1, so we can write f3n minus 1, and it will be equal to 4, and this is n plus 1 by 2. Now here this 2 and 2 will cancel, so from here we can write value of f3n will be this 2n square minus 2n plus 1, and that is the answer to this question.